My parents forgot my birthday for 5 years in a row, but they never forgot a single birthday of my sister, who had humiliated me my whole life, so I forgot about the expensive gift they asked for their anniversary. "How could you?" they yelled when I gave them $30 instead of a car. My answer made them shut up. I clutched the envelope so tightly that its edges began to crumple in my damp, excited palms. The Golden Lily restaurant, the most expensive place in our city, was glowing with lights. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft light on snow-white tablecloths. Waiters in perfectly pressed suits scurried between the guests, serving champagne and hors d'oeuvre. My parents' 50th anniversary party had gathered about 60 people, relatives, friends, colleagues. They were all smiling, congratulating, hugging. I stood at the column, trying to blend in with the decor. My simple navy blue suit looked too subdued next to the glittery outfits of the guests, especially next to my sister Jennifer, who glowed in a silver dress, hugging each new arrival as if she hadn't seen them in forever. "Marina," Aunt Laurel, my father's sister, called out to me. "You haven't changed at all." She always said that, even though she hadn't seen me in 5 years. I smiled, strained, and let myself be hugged, breathing in the heavy floral scent of her perfume. "You're still so modest," she laughed. "Your sister, on the other hand, is a real star. Did you hear she was promoted to executive director? At the age of 32. That's unbelievable." "Yes, unbelievable," I agreed, not realizing that my father was on the board of directors of the same company. "Are you still there? At the publishing house?" "I'm still there." "But honey, you're so smart. Maybe Jennifer could help you find something a little more serious." "More serious?" I barely restrained myself from saying that book editing was serious enough. Instead, I just nodded and mumbled something about needing to check to make sure everything was ready for the gala. My father and mother sat at the head of the long table, accepting congratulations. My mother, Helen Coleman, looked 40 in her 50s, the result of weekly visits to the beautician and a strict diet. My father, Richard, had always prided himself on his iron grip, which was how he'd built his construction company from scratch. They were both smiling now, but I knew those smiles, duty smiles, for the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the host of the evening, clinking his spoon on his glass. "It's time for the special part of our evening. The family has prepared some special gifts for the Jubilees." My stomach clenched into a lump. I knew what was about to happen. Jennifer would speak first, always the best. She walked out to her parents, holding a small red box with a gold ribbon. "Mom, Dad," she began in that special voice she saved for public speaking, low, melodic, almost an actor's voice. "You gave me everything: love, education, support. You made me who I am today." I could barely keep from rolling my eyes. Jennifer continued, "I know you've always dreamed of a place where our whole family could get together, a place to escape the hustle and bustle of the city." She handed the box to her mom. She opened it and gasped. Inside were keys with a keychain in the shape of a house. Is that what I think it is?" Mom whispered. "Crystal Lake Country House," Jennifer announced triumphantly. 2 bedrooms, fireplace, private pier, and boat. Everything you've ever dreamed of." The room erupted in applause. Mom cried. Dad hugged Jennifer as tightly as if she had just saved the world. I saw their faces, genuine admiration, pride. They'd never looked at me like that. Never. "And now," continued the host, when the applause died down, the word to the youngest daughter, Marina. I stepped forward, feeling dozens of eyes watching my every move. The envelope in my hands seemed both weightless and heavy as lead. "Congratulations on your anniversary," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I got you a present too." I held the envelope out to my father. He took it with that special smile I used to call the waiting smile, when you already know there's something very good inside. 3 months ago, they had explicitly hinted that they would like a new car as a gift from me. "Your sister is busy with the house, and you could take care of the transportation, honey," Mom said then, even though she knew full well that in my position at the publishing house, I was barely making ends meet while paying the loan on my own apartment. Dad opened the envelope. His smile froze when he saw the contents: a homemade card and 3 $10 bills. "What's this?" he asked, and he could already hear the storm in his voice. "A card and $30, I answered calmly. "Marina," Mom hissed, leaning over to me. "We were talking about the car?" I smiled. "Yes, we did. And that's all you can give us?" Dad raised his voice. The guests began to whisper. $30? For our anniversary? How could you? Mom's voice turned into a scream. After all we've done for you, we raised you, taught you, supported you. I saw Jennifer cross her arms over her chest and watch the scene unfold with a contemptuous grin. She always enjoyed my failures. "Ungrateful," my father said through gritted teeth. "We've put so much into you, and you've invested?" I interrupted him, and something inside me broke. Or rather, it was the other way around. "When was the last time you called me without asking for help? When did you take an interest in my life, in my progress?" "What are you talking about? We're always here for you," Mom exclaimed. "Really?" I felt a lump come to my throat, but I forced myself to suppress it. "Then why did you forget my birthday? More than once, 5 years in a row." The room was so quiet I could hear the clock on the wall ticking. "That's not true," Mom said uncertainly. "April 21st, I said clearly. 5 years in a row I hadn't heard from you on that day. You never missed Jennifer's birthday, though. Remember her surprise party last month? You've been planning it for 2 weeks. We were busy," Dad mumbled. "Yeah, I know. Always busy when it comes to me. But never when it comes to Jennifer." "You're just jealous of your sister," Mom said sharply. "She's a success, and you—" "I could just as well," I replied calmly, looking straight into my parents' eyes. "As you could forget I existed on my birthday for 5 years in a row. $30, 6 for each year you forgot. Fair enough, isn't it?" The silence that followed my words was deafening. I saw the faces of the guests change from shock to confusion, from confusion to embarrassment. My mom turned pale. My dad froze with his mouth open. Jennifer looked like she'd been slapped. And in that silence, I felt strength for the first time. Not anger, not resentment, just strength. The power to finally tell the truth, to stop being invisible, to stop smiling when I wanted to scream. For 34 years, I've been the quiet, comfortable Marina, the one who never caused any trouble, someone who could be overlooked. But not today. Today, everyone heard me. I had my first memory of being different when I was 6 years old. Jennifer and I were sitting at the kitchen table, drawing pictures for my parents' refrigerator. My drawing was neat. I was diligently coloring the house without going beyond the outline. Jennifer, who was 9 at the time, was sprawling her pencils across the paper, creating a colorful but chaotic composition. "Look at that imagination," Mom marveled when her sister showed her her drawing. "A real talent!" I held mine out, expecting a similar reaction. "Very nice, dear," Mom said absent-mindedly, not even looking at it properly. "But why don't you use more colors like Jennifer?" At the time, I didn't think much of it. But then there were more and more moments like that. In elementary school, I'd bring home A's, and they'd disappear into my desk drawer. Jennifer would get a B after a string of C's. She was praised for a week. I won the city recitation contest in 4th grade. My parents didn't even show up because Jennifer had dance club rehearsal. When she won 3rd place in the same competition a year later, her father took the whole family to a restaurant and ordered champagne for himself and her mother to celebrate the talent of our starlet. Jennifer quickly realized she was in a privileged position. Her natural brightness and outgoing personality combined with parental adoration created the perfect breeding ground for the development of self-confidence bordering on arrogance. She didn't just enjoy her position, she actively used it against me. In 6th grade, I worked on a science project about the solar system for a month. I made models of the planets, memorized all the facts, and wrote a handwritten report. The project was supposed to win me a prize at the school exhibition. The day before it was due, I left it all on the table in the room Jennifer and I shared and went out to dinner. When I returned, I found that someone had knocked over a glass of water on my paper. The ink was blurred, the pages stuck together. "Oh, I'm sorry," Jennifer said with fake regret. "I accidentally touched the glass when I was looking for my notebook," I cried. Mom came into the room. "What happened?" "Jennifer ruined my project. On purpose." "Don't be silly," Mom frowned. Jennifer wouldn't do something like that. It was an accident. But I saw her. That's enough, Marina. Mom cut her off. Instead of blaming your sister, you'd better think about how to make things right. You're always looking around for someone to blame. That night, I rewrote the report, working until 2 in the morning. My project still came in second place, behind Brian Miller's paper on volcanoes. Jennifer reminded me of this 5 times during the day, adding, "And I told you your idea was boring." When I turned 13, I started writing short stories. It was my way of escaping reality, of creating a world where I mattered. I wrote them down in a journal with a lock that I hid under my mattress. One day, coming home from school, I caught Jennifer reading my journal aloud to her friends, who laughed at every line. And then Princess Melanie realized that she was not just a small-town girl, but the heir to a great kingdom, Jennifer recited mockingly. God, what a kindergarten! I snatched the journal out of her hands. That's private! How dare you! Relax, Marina. Jennifer rolled her eyes. We were just having fun. You don't have to be so dramatic. I complained to my father when he got home from work. He just sighed. Marina, you're not a little girl anymore. You can't run to me with every fight. Learn to solve problems on your own. Things only got worse in middle school. Jennifer was at the height of her popularity, cheerleader, student council president, everyone's favorite. I was in the shadows, average grades, few friends, a literature club that no one wanted to join. When I liked a boy, I kept it a secret. But somehow, Jennifer always found out and intentionally flirted with him. That's what happened with Noah Patterson in 10th grade. He was quiet, like me, loved books, and had an amazing smile. We started chatting in literature class. One day he asked me to a movie, and I was over the moon. I blabbed about it to my mom when I was helping her cook dinner. That's nice, she said absent-mindedly, and I thought that was the end of it. But at dinner, Mom suddenly announced, Marina's going on a date with Noah. Jennifer immediately perked up. Noah Patterson? That cute guy from the swim team? Yes, I confirmed reluctantly. Oh, I know him. He's so cute. The next day, Noah came up to me in the hallway. Listen, Marina, about the movie. I can't go. Why not? My voice trembled. I had other plans. A week later, I saw him and Jennifer in the school cafeteria. They were holding hands, and she was laughing loudly at his jokes. When Jennifer met my gaze, she winked. They dated for 2 weeks. Then she dumped him. He turned out to be boring, she explained at home. Noah never spoke to me again. Perhaps the most glaring example of the difference in my parents' attitudes toward us was our birthdays. Jennifer's birthday, the 7th of July, was always the event of the year. Guests, presents, a special cake, sometimes even animators or trips. For her 16th birthday, her parents rented a small boat and took 30 of her friends on a river cruise. My birthday, April 21st, often went by without much attention. Usually it was just dinner at home, a small cake, a practical gift like clothes or school supplies. The year Jennifer received a gift of a trip to Paris for her coming of age, I received a set of stationery and a promise that maybe next year we'll do something special. That special thing never came. After high school, Jennifer enrolled in a prestigious university on the East Coast on a partial scholarship. Her parents proudly paid for the remainder, even though their construction company was just starting to grow. I stayed at the local college, studying literature and working evenings at a coffee shop to pay my tuition. A sensible choice, my father said at the time. Not everyone needs an expensive education. When Jennifer graduated with honors, my parents threw a grand party. For my modest ceremony, they were half an hour late because of an important meeting my father had. After college, I found a job as a proofreader at a small publishing house called Morgan Press. It didn't pay much, but it was a book-related job, and that seemed important to me. Jennifer, through her father's connections, immediately landed a position in the marketing department of a large construction corporation. Every year, she moved up the ladder, and I stayed in the same place. When are you going to get a real job? Mom often asked. Jennifer was already running a department when she was your age. I didn't answer. What could I say? That I love books? That I love making them better, cleaner, more perfect? That I still write my stories at night even though I never show them to anyone? The only person who saw me as more than just a shadow of Jennifer was my coworker, Rachel Kinski. She worked as an editor and often took me to lunch where we discussed manuscripts and authors. You know what I noticed? She said one day when we were sitting in a little cafe across the street from the publisher's office. You write wonderful comments on manuscripts, not just correcting mistakes, but really improving the texts. I smiled embarrassedly. That's just my job. No, your job is to find mistakes. You do more than that. Have you ever thought of writing something of your own? I hesitated. Sometimes I write short stories, but they're not very good. Let me read it, Rachel suggested. No, I mean, they're very personal. Rachel looked at me carefully. Marina, you know you can trust me, right? I nodded. Then tell me, why are you so afraid to show your work? I'm not your family. I won't judge you. It was the third or fourth time we'd had this conversation. It was as if Rachel sensed there was something more behind my quiet restraint. My sister once found my journal of stories and read it aloud to her friends, I finally admitted. They laughed, and my parents said I was overreacting. Rachel frowned. Your sister sounds like a real pain in the ass. Pardon the expression. I laughed involuntarily. And your parents? She continued. Have they always treated you this way? They're busy. They have a business, a sister with her brilliant career. What about you? Rachel asked gently. Who's busy with you? The question caught me off guard. I opened my mouth, but there was no answer. Exactly, Rachel nodded. You know, you remind me of the family sewing machine. They only get you when they need to sew holes. Remember when you took over organizing your dad's company anniversary party? Or how you babysat your sister's kids all last month while she was away on a business trip? And when was the last time they did something for you? I didn't say a word. Marina, Rachel put her hand on mine, you deserve better than that. You're talented, you're smart, you're kind. But if you don't start valuing yourself, no one will do it for you. I knew she was right. But how do you change the habits of a lifetime? How do I stop being invisible when that's what my family had taught me? My last birthday went by as usual, unnoticed. I waited for a call from my parents all day. In the evening, I wrote a message. Thanks for the congratulations. My mom replied an hour later. What's up, honey? When I reminded her of the date, she sent an embarrassed smiley face and a promise to make it up to me this weekend. The weekend came and went, and the promise went unfulfilled. A week later was Jennifer's birthday. I found out about it by accident. I saw pictures on social media from a surprise party my parents had thrown. In one of the pictures, my mom was hugging my sister, and on the table was a cake with the words, Our favorite daughter. Not oldest daughter or Jennifer, just favorite. As if the other didn't exist. 5 years, 5 consecutive years of my forgotten birthdays. I've never been a person who demanded special attention or grand gestures. But there's something humbling about having your own parents forget the day you were born. It all started on my 30th birthday. I waited for at least a phone call. It was a milestone after all. I prepared a small dinner in my apartment, bought a bottle of champagne. I checked my phone all day. By evening, I realized no one would call. The next day, I called my mom. Mom, yesterday was my birthday. Pause on the other end of the line. Oh my God, honey, it slipped my mind. You know, your father had a big deal, and I was working late on the paperwork. It's okay, I lied. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. Of course, honey. We'll definitely celebrate this weekend, okay? But the weekend came and went, and the celebration was forgotten. I chalked it up to coincidence. We all have times when life gets too busy to remember all the dates, even my daughter's birthdays. A year later, I decided to hedge my bets. A week before my 31st birthday, I called my parents. I hope we can have dinner next Wednesday. I want to celebrate my birthday. Oh, Marina, my mom answered immediately. We were just about to tell you. Jennifer and I are going to Vermont for the weekend. She's stressed out at work, she needs a vacation, and there are such beautiful places there. We won't be back until Friday. But my birthday's on Wednesday. Yeah? I thought it was at the end of the month. Well, we'll celebrate when we get back, okay? I swallowed a lump in my throat. Sure, Mom. Have a good vacation. They never called that day. In the evening, I got a text from Jennifer. Selfies with a glass of wine against the backdrop of the fall forest. Awesome view. Wish you were here with us. In that moment, I realized she knew. She knew and enjoyed it. On my 32nd birthday, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I booked a table at a nice restaurant, called my parents 2 weeks in advance, reminded them a week in advance, texted them the morning of the meeting. They promised to be there by 7 p.m. I showed up half an hour in advance to check everything out. I ordered appetizers, wine, asked them to prepare a small cake with 1 candle. I never liked pomp. At 7, they were gone. At 8:30, I started calling. No one picked up. They showed up at 9 when I had already eaten all the appetizers alone and told the waiter that the cake could be put away. "Sorry I'm late," Dad said nonchalantly, sitting down at the table. There was an urgent call from the office. "We tried to call," Mom added, pulling out a mirror to check her makeup. "But you weren't picking up. That was a lie. I kept my eyes on the phone all evening, but I didn't say anything." "What did you order?" Dad asked, looking at the menu. "I hope it's a decent steak." When the dishes arrived, Mom grimaced as she looked at her pasta. "Oh, I can't eat this. Too many carbs. Why did you choose an Italian restaurant, Marina? You know I'm on a diet." I silently nibbled on my food while they discussed Jennifer's latest progress. The cake never arrived. I canceled it when I saw Mom's reaction to the pasta. Not a word was said about my birthday all evening. When I got home, I threw away all the presents I'd bought myself and wrapped them in pretty paper, a little tradition I'd started to please myself in some way. That night, I cried for the first time in years. On my 33rd birthday, I didn't expect anything. No phone calls, no reminders. I spent the day at work, had dinner in the evening with Rachel, who gave me a beautiful diary and a bottle of good wine. "Happy birthday, Marina," she said, raising her glass. "I'm glad to have you in my life." Those were the only congratulations that day. The next morning came a message from my mom. "I think it was your birthday yesterday? Sorry I didn't call. I was busy getting ready for a charity event. Congrats after the fact. Kisses." Not even a call, a message. "I think so." As if she wasn't sure. But the real blow was my 34th birthday. A month before it, I saw Jennifer's social media post. "Starting to prepare for the most important day in July. 35 coming up, which means I need something special." Her mom immediately responded with a comment. "Already ordered a cake from your favorite cake shop, and don't forget to send the guest list." Something inside me snapped. Her birthday was 3 months after mine, and they were already planning. I realized it wasn't about being busy. It wasn't about forgetting. They just didn't think my day was meaningful. When April 21st came around, I didn't get a call or a text. All day long, I mechanically did my work, answered emails, ruled other people's texts. In the evening, I bought a small cupcake with 1 candle at the supermarket. I lit it, made a wish, to stop feeling this pain, and blew it out. Exactly 1 week later, I got a call at the office. It was Mom. "Marina, honey, we have amazing news. Your sister has been promoted to executive director." She made it sound like it was my accomplishment, too. I listened to her enthusiastic monologue about Jennifer's talents, about how proud Dad was, how they were going to have a huge party. "It's next Saturday," Mom chirped. "You'll come, won't you?" "Of course," I answered automatically. "Great, and don't forget to wear something fancy. There'll be a lot of important people there." She didn't ask how I was. She didn't notice that she'd missed my birthday. It didn't even occur to her. Jennifer's promotion party was at the same restaurant where I'd once waited 2 hours for my parents on my birthday. Only now the room was decorated with flowers, live music was playing, and there was an ice sculpture with her initials on it at the entrance. "Isn't she amazing?" Mom said admiringly to each guest, pointing to Jennifer in her elegant black dress. "Only 34 and already such a career. I was 34 too. I had been in the same position for 7 years. No one had ever spoken of me with such pride." After dinner, my father stood up and made a toast. "To our amazing daughter, who makes us the proudest parents in the world every day." Everyone applauded. I raised my glass too and smiled, even though something inside me had finally died. It was 3 months after that evening when I received a beautiful invitation in the mail. "Pleased to invite you to Richard and Helen Coleman's 50th birthday celebration." At the bottom was a note. In lieu of flowers and formal gifts, the anniversary honorees would welcome gifts from the enclosed wish list. I opened the attached file. The list began with the item, a new car for Marina. The model in parentheses was a mid-size sedan with an approximate value of $30,000. I reread it 3 times, not believing my eyes. Did they really expect me, with my modest salary, to give them a car? Even though I drive a 10-year-old used hatchback? I found out later that the list had been sent only to the people closest to me and Jennifer, with the note that Jennifer had already booked the country house they'd long dreamed of. So the car was still on me. That night, I sat in the kitchen of my small apartment for a long time, looking at the invitation. 5 years of forgotten birthdays. 5 years where my existence was less important than Jennifer's new haircut. And now they expected me to give them a gift I couldn't afford. I remembered all the times I'd swallowed resentment. When I smiled instead of yelling. When I said, "It's okay," even though I was tearing up inside. 30,000 for the car. I whispered into the emptiness of the kitchen. 30,000 for the right to be ignored again. Something clicked in my head. 30,000, 5 years, 6,000 for each birthday forgotten. Or just $30, $6 for each year. It was an absurd idea, childish, petty. I pictured the shocked faces of my parents, Jennifer's gloating grin, the judgmental looks of the guests. But then I remembered sitting alone in the restaurant, canceling the cake, crying into my pillow. How my mother texted, "I think it was your birthday yesterday." How my father made a toast to our amazing daughter without even looking in my direction. I opened my wallet, pulled out 3 $10 bills, put them on the table. $6 for each year, I repeated out loud. Fair enough. That night I couldn't sleep. The rational part of me said I shouldn't do this, that it would only exacerbate the rift between my parents and me, that they would never understand. But the other part, the part that had been silent and patient for years, the part that grew smaller and more invisible with each forgotten birthday, was now screaming for justice. In the morning, I called Rachel. "I'm going to do something terrible," I said. "Are you going to finally tell your parents the truth?" she asked without a shadow of surprise. "How do you know?" "Because it's about time, Marina. It's about time." That day, I bought a simple card, drew a cake with a single candle inside, and wrote, "Happy anniversary. I haven't forgotten." I put in 3 $10 bills, sealed it in a plain white envelope. My mind was made up. I would show them what it was like to be forgotten, devalued, invisible. For one night, let them feel what I had felt for 5 years straight. There was a deafening silence in the restaurant. The guests looked at each other, and someone even pulled out his cell phone, pretending to be busy. Father was the first to break the silence. "No need to make a scene, Marina. If you have a complaint, we'll discuss it at home." As always, I smiled. Everything that can spoil the perfect picture should be hidden away from prying eyes? Mom grabbed my hand. "Honey, you're clearly not yourself. Maybe you need to go outside, get some air." "I'm perfectly fine, Mom. For the first time in years." "She's just jealous," Jennifer interjected. "Jealous that I was able to give you what you wanted and she couldn't." I turned to my sister. "Really? Tell everyone how much this house cost? And whose money did you use to buy it? Why don't you mention that loan from Dad last year? $200,000, if I'm not mistaken?" Jennifer turned pale. "Those are family matters, and they don't concern you." "Oh, but they do concern me when I have to chip in for my parents' car." I felt something inside me break, and the words that had been locked away for years came out. "They touch me when it comes to organizing a party, helping with paperwork, babysitting your kids. But when it comes to recognition, to respect, I'm invisible." "She's clearly not herself," Jennifer addressed the guests. "She's having problems at work, and she's taking it out on her loved ones. Classic projection. Tell them about Noah Patterson," I said, looking straight into my sister's eyes. "Tell them how you beat up my first boyfriend just because you could. Tell me how you read my journal out loud to your friends. How you accidentally spilled water on my school projects." "That was 100 years ago," Jennifer exclaimed. "Gosh, are you still holding on to childhood grudges? How about last year's Christmas, when you accidentally mentioned in front of everyone that I'd gained weight? Or the month before, when you convinced my mom that I didn't need to come to family dinner because Marina didn't have any personal life to speak of anyway. Jennifer's face contorted with rage. You're just a pathetic loser who can't accept that I'm more successful. That's enough. Dad slammed his fist on the table. Marina, you've ruined the evening. I demand that you immediately apologize to us and the guests. I looked around the room. Dozens of confused, shocked faces. Aunt Laurel hid her eyes. Uncle Fred studied his wineglass. My father's co-workers pretended to be unconcerned. You know, I said to everyone, I've been a good girl for 34 years. Obedient, comfortable, inconspicuous. I kept the myth of our perfect family alive. I smiled when I wanted to cry. I thought if I was good enough, my parents would finally notice they had a second daughter. I turned to my parents, but now I realize that's impossible. You didn't forget my birthdays by accident. You didn't ignore my accomplishments by mistake. You simply made a choice, and that choice was not in my favor. That's not true, Mom started crying. We love you just as much as Jennifer. It's just that you've always been so independent, so unattentive. Don't put this on me. My voice shook. I was quiet because every time I tried to assert myself, you made it clear that my voice didn't matter. You're being dramatic. My father shook his head. Am I? I pulled out my phone, opened the calendar. April 21st, my birthday. Look at the last 5 years. Not one call from you on that day. But July 7th, Jennifer's birthday, is always marked. Mom turned pale. Dad looked away. We were busy. You weren't busy. I put the phone away. You just didn't think it was important. I got up from the table. I won't be your invisible person anymore. I won't be the one who's always there when you need help, but who's overlooked when it comes to love and respect. I'm done. Jennifer tried to stop me. There she goes again, running away when the going gets tough. I stopped and turned to her. No, Jennifer. For the first time in my life, I'm not running away. I'm walking away. There's a difference. The last thing I heard as I left the restaurant was my father's voice. Come back now. But I didn't come back. That night, I couldn't sleep. My adrenaline was surging. My mind was racing. I did it. I said everything I'd been holding inside for years. My phone was ringing off the hook with calls and texts. I turned it off. In the morning, I took 2 weeks paid vacation and called Rachel. I need to get away, I said. Just disappear for a while. I told her about the anniversary, about the $30, about how I'd finally spoken up. Damn it, she exclaimed. I wish I'd been there. My aunt has a cabin in Sagerbridge, Rachel said. It's a little coastal town. She rents out rooms, but there's no one there right now. I could call her. The next day, I was driving down the coastal highway. Windows down, wind in my hair, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on my way to freedom. Sagerbridge turned out to be a small town with white houses facing the sea, old-fashioned street lamps on the main street, and a pier with fishing boats. Rachel's aunt, Veronica Price, lived in a Victorian house on the hill. A tall woman of about 65 with a mop of gray hair and piercing blue eyes met me on the doorstep with a cigarette in one hand and a book in the other. So you're the girl who sent her family to hell? She asked, instead of greeting me. I was confused. Rachel told you? Of course she did. She's worried about you. Veronica took a drag. Come on in. Your room is upstairs, first door on the right. Bathroom's at the end of the hall. Dinner's at 7. Don't be late. I can't stand cold food. The room was small but cozy. A bed with a patchwork quilt, a desk by the window overlooking the sea, a bookshelf with shabby tomes. On the bedside table lay a note. Don't touch my whiskey, but the wine in the cupboard is common. VP. At dinner, which consisted of a delicious fish pie, Veronica hardly spoke, studying me over her glasses. Only when I finished eating did she ask, So, what are you going to do with your newfound freedom? I shrugged. Honestly? I don't know. I've never thought about it before. Bullshit! Veronica cut me off. Every woman thinks about freedom, especially those who don't have it. Maybe you're right, but I really don't know what's next. All my life I've been trying to earn a place in my family. You're writing. It was a statement, not a question. Where did you... Rachel told me you're a proofreader, but you dream of writing. Besides, I noticed the way you looked at my bookshelves. Only writers look that way. Sometimes, it's nothing serious. I've written 12 novels, Veronica said. And you know what I realized? The best stories are always about what we know best. Our fears, our wounds, our struggles. She pointed her fork at me. You have a story to tell. The one you spouted at your parents' anniversary is just the tip of the iceberg. Write it. I'm not sure I can. Of course you can. What's stopping you? Fear of it being badly written? Or fear that it will be too good and everyone will see your pain? I remained silent, amazed at the precision of her words. The next morning, I woke up at first light. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began to write. The words poured out like a dam had burst. I wrote about my childhood, the years in my sister's shadow, the constant feeling that I wasn't good enough. I worked on the manuscript every morning and explored the township during the day. On the third day, I found a small bookstore, the Sea Page, on the corner of the main street. Inside, it smelled like old books and coffee. The tall shelves were filled with books of all genres, and there were comfortable chairs in the corner. What can I do for you? I heard a man's voice and turned around. Behind the counter stood a man in his 40s with disheveled brown hair and attentive brown eyes. He was wearing a sweater with elbow patches. I'm just looking around, I replied. New in town? I know all the local book lovers, but this is the first time I've seen you. Yeah, I'm kind of on vacation. Ethan Lawrence, he extended his hand, owner of this little bookworm paradise. Marina Coleman, I shook his hand, temporary resident of Veronica Price's house. His eyebrows went up. You live at Veronica's? And you're still alive? Impressive. I laughed. She's not that scary? Only if she likes you. Ethan winked. And I guess she likes you. She rarely lets in guests in the off-season. That afternoon, I spent 2 hours in the bookstore talking to Ethan about books, writers, and publishing. It turned out that before moving to Sagerbridge, he'd worked as an editor at a major publishing house. Why did you leave? I asked. His face clouded over for a moment. Family drama. Dad died, leaving a lot of debt. Mom wasn't coping. I came back to help, and then I just stayed. I heard familiar notes in his voice, the complicated family relationships, the sense of duty overriding his own desires. Over the next week, I returned to the bookstore twice. Ethan recommended books to me, treated me to coffee, told me funny stories about the locals. We talked about everything but our families, as if we both felt that topic was too painful. Every night at dinner, Veronica asked about my manuscript. Not about the content, she never tried to read what I wrote, but about the process. The victim doesn't write the story, she said. The survivor writes the story. On the 10th day of my stay in Sagerbridge, the doorbell rang. I opened it and saw Rachel with a large bag over her shoulder. Surprise! She exclaimed. I thought I'd check to see if you'd drowned yourself in a sea of sadness. We hugged, and I felt my eyes fill with tears from relief, from gratitude, from realizing I had a true friend after all. How are you? Rachel asked, as we settled into my room with a bottle of wine. Better than I expected, I answered honestly. Writing a book, exploring the city. I met the owner of a bookstore. Wow. Rachel raised her eyebrows. Cute? I blushed. What's that got to do with it? He's just an interesting person to talk to. What about your parents? Did they call? I nodded. Every day. I don't answer. They came to the publishing house, Rachel reported. They were looking for you. I told them you'd taken a vacation and hadn't told them where you were going. Thank you. I squeezed her hand. They looked shocked, Rachel continued. Especially your mother. She kept saying, we have to talk to her, it's just a misunderstanding. I grinned bitterly. 34 years of misunderstandings. What are you going to do next? Rachel asked. You can't hide here forever. I know, but right now I need that time. Time to realize who I am without their approval, without their attention, without their neglect. I need to finish the book. Rachel looked at me carefully. You've changed. I would never have heard such determination from you before. I guess it's always been in me. I smiled. I just finally let it come out. 6 months flew by like a day. I sat in the C page, looking at the email on my tablet screen, an official confirmation from Harrison and Sons about the pre-approval of my manuscript. Your story of family relationships and self-discovery has a sincerity and depth that is rare today, the letter said. After that conversation with Rachel, I decided to stay in Sagerbridge. First, I took an extended leave of absence from my publishing house, and 2 months later, I quit, taking a remote freelance job. Veronica let me rent a room on a permanent basis for a small fee and help around the house. I wrote every day, slowly turning my pain into a story that could help others. Congratulations. Ethan placed a cup of coffee with whipped cream in front of me. I told you they'd take it. He leaned over and kissed me lightly on the cheek. Things developed between us slowly, carefully. Two people with the baggage of past traumas, we were both afraid to rush into things, afraid to break the fragile trust we'd built day by day. Our relationship was more like a strong friendship with glimmers of something more, and we were okay with that. It's only a pre-approval, I smiled. They have yet to read the full version. Which will be even better, Ethan said confidently. You came here broken, and now you write so breathtakingly. I was about to answer when the bell over the door rang. When I turned around, I froze. My mother walked into the bookstore. She looked different, slightly thinner, with a new haircut, wearing a simple coat instead of the usual designer outfits. Our eyes met, and I felt my heart skip a beat. Marina, she said softly. Mom, how did you find me? Rachel. She rubbed her gloves nervously. Don't be mad at her, I practically begged. Ethan tactfully walked to the other end of the store, leaving us alone. Can we, talk? Mom asked. We settled into a cafe on the waterfront. The cold sea wind drove the waves against the shore. The sky was covered with gray clouds, but the small room was warm and cozy. I've been looking for you all these months, Mom began, holding her teacup with both hands. Calling, writing. I know, I nodded. I needed time. Your father is furious, she smiled weakly. He says you're acting like a child. And you? What about me? I think this is the first time you've acted like an adult. You said something you should have said a long time ago. I looked at her in surprise. Are you serious? Marina. My mom took a deep breath. What you said at the anniversary. It was painful to hear. Very painful. But it was true. Your father and I have really neglected you. Especially me. She was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. When Jennifer was born, I was very young. 22 years old, no experience. She was so bright, demanding, loud. All eyes on her. And then you came along. Calm, quiet, self-sufficient. You never yelled, never threw tantrums, never demanded attention. And I took the path of least resistance. So I was ignored because I didn't yell loud enough? I asked bitterly. No. Mom shook her head. It's more complicated than that. You know, I had an older sister. She died when I was 15, leukemia. She was the perfect daughter, an excellent student, musical talent, adored by everyone. I was just an ordinary, unremarkable girl. After she died, it was like my parents stopped seeing me. It was like I was a ghost in my own house. I'd never heard that story before. When Jennifer was born, I saw myself in her, the person I wanted to be as a child, bright, visible, and in you, Mom swallowed. I saw you as my dead sister. And instead of loving you for that, I started to, I don't know, competing? That sounds awful, I know. You were competing with your daughter? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not consciously, Mom shook her head. I didn't realize it until after that night. When you left, I stayed up all night trying to figure out how we'd gotten to this point. And then I remembered my sister, my feelings, my pain, and I saw that I'd done the same thing to you. We were silent for a long time. I stared at the waves, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. Not an excuse, but an explanation. I felt sorry for my mother, the girl who had lost her sister and become invisible. And yet the pain of years of neglect couldn't disappear in one conversation. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, Mom said quietly. Just give us a chance to start over, but in a different way. And Jennifer? I asked. She's having a hard time accepting change. She's always been the center of attention, and now she's afraid of losing it." "So nothing's changed," I sighed. "I've changed," Mom said firmly. "And your father? He's changing too, though he'll never admit it." 2 weeks after Mom's visit, my 36th birthday came. I decided to celebrate it at the C Page. Ethan had closed the store for the evening, and we had a small party. Veronica made a chocolate cake. Rachel came in from out of town with a bottle of champagne, and a few new friends from Sagerbridge came over. I was blowing out the candles to a round of applause when the doorbell rang again. My father entered the store, holding a shabby cardboard box. "Sorry I'm late," he said, looking around. "Traffic on the highway." I was too surprised to respond. "Happy birthday, Marina." He handed me the box. "This is for you." Inside were old notebooks, albums, sheets of paper, my childhood drawings, first stories, school essays, all neatly folded, signed, dated. "You kept this?" I couldn't believe it. "Of course," he nodded. "Everything you'd ever written or drawn. I knew you'd be a writer one day. I always knew. But why didn't you ever—" "Never told me?" He grinned bitterly. "Because I'm an idiot, Marina. Because I thought love was about providing a roof over my head and food on the table. I don't know how to talk about feelings. I never have." I carefully went through my childhood artwork, not knowing what to say. "Your mother told me about your conversation," my father continued. "She's right. We hurt you. I hurt you. And I don't know if it can be undone. But I'd like to try." That night, we didn't solve all the problems. We didn't give you a tearful hug and promise that everything would be perfect from now on. Dad stayed for cake, talked to Ethan a bit about business and books, and then left. But something had changed. In him, in me, between us. Late that night, when everyone had dispersed, I sat down at my computer to finish the last chapter of my book. My fingers flew across the keyboard, the words flowed. "Forgiveness is not an event, but a journey," I wrote. "A long, winding road with ups and downs. Sometimes you have to lose family to gain it. Sometimes you have to let go of those you love so they can find their way back to you. And always, always you have to learn to love yourself first, before you can expect love from others." I looked out the window at the night sea. Tomorrow would be a new day. Tomorrow I would continue working on the book, meet with Ethan, call my mom. I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive my family or fully heal from old wounds. But I did know one thing. I wouldn't be invisible anymore. Not to them, not to myself.
Любі глядачі, дякую вам за перегляд, ставте лайки та підписуйтесь на канал. Також напишіть в коментарях, чи погоджуєтесь ви з Дженніфер, чи вона мала розказати все матері, чи ні, чи мала все розказати своєму коханцю щодо свого чоловіка, чи ні. І також прокоментуйте, чи вам сподобалось це відео.